The EAD10 is an incredibly powerful piece of equipment. An example of that is using it not only to record gigs, to monitor gigs, you can also use triggers with it to sample things, and you can also use it as a MIDI controller to control backing tracks all at the same time. And I just thought this was something to record Instagram videos with. So let's take a look at how we can use it as a MIDI controller to control backing tracks and sample all at the same time. And can it play the backing track and record what we're hearing on the EAD10 exactly the same time we trigger the backing track? Let's find out. So here's what I'll be using in this video. Firstly is the EAD10, obviously. Then that's going into my Mac with a USB-C to USB-B cable. I'd highly recommend grabbing one of these if you use triggers and sample pads a lot. There's a link in the description to the one that I'm using if you want the exact same one. Then for the trigger, I'm using the Roland PD-8. You can use any trigger you like with this. I'm just using this because it's one of my favorite triggers to hit. For the foot switch, I'm using the single foot pedal, the Boss FS5U, but again, you can use whichever one suits your setup and that you have. As a quick side note about the foot switch as well, the best bit is that you can actually put a sample on this. So if you want to use the foot switch as just a kick trigger, you can use that too. It's really cool. Once you've decided on all of the equipment that you want to use and the combination and that sort of stuff, just plug in the USB-B cable to your Mac. You don't need to install any drivers or anything like that, which is really nice. If you're on Windows, sometimes there can be some problems, so you can download a driver on the Yamaha website. I think it's somewhere in the manual, so I would check that. But if you're on Mac like me, you don't need any drivers at all. You can just go straight in. Then for software, I'm going to use Logic. Now you can use Ableton or QLab or pretty much anything that takes a MIDI input. Obviously with QLab, you can't then use a sample on the triggers, but you can use it to MIDI control. Like I said, I'm using Logic, and I'm actually using my own template that I've built and that you can buy as well, because I'm really, really proud of it. The link is down below, but it's got loads of stuff like click and cues. It's set up for multi-track backing tracks and mono backing tracks. And my favorite feature is that it's got this, an auto stop. So it automatically stops and goes to the next song at the end of a song, and I'm just really proud of that feature. But anyway, you can check it out at the link down below. So the first thing we want to do is MIDI sampling. So this is where I'm going to hit the PD-8 and it's going to play a sound. To do this, I'm going to create a new software instrument track, and then over here I'm going to search machine with the correct spelling, drum machine designer. That's going to bring up this. I'm going to close the library because I'm not going to use any inbuilt sounds, I'm going to use my own, and this is what we're going to be sampling on. With this, you have the choice of either finding the MIDI note that it's triggering on here, or setting the MIDI note in the EAD10 to these MIDI notes. I'm going to drag in my own sample to C2 here, and I'm going to use this one, which sounds like this. But now what I want to do is match the MIDI note that the EAD10 is sending out to that note there. To do that, on the EAD10, hit the pad that you want to assign this sound to. So in my case, it's the PD-8, which is input trig 5, or trigger 5 input. Then you want to go to menu, scene edit, voice, and then scroll all the way down till you'll hit the page that says message type, and this is the bottom page. In this menu, we can then change the MIDI note to C2 to match the drum machine designer. For me, that's MIDI note 48. Now, while we're on this menu, there's a couple of other settings that I'll show you because they're quite important. The first one is the MIDI channel. So the EAD10 naturally sends out a MIDI channel 10. If you've seen any of my other videos, there's things like the Roland SPD-SX and Pro and that sort of stuff. They all send out a MIDI channel 10. Seems to be the go-to. I'm going to keep this as is, but make a note of which one yours is, or if you want to change yours to something that you want. Then the only other thing we need to look at is trigger velocity, and that's the dynamics. So if you're on variable, that means that you'll have dynamics when you hit the pad. I don't want that. I want it to be constant, the same every single time. So I'm going to use the plus button to move that all the way to 127. If you hold down the plus button, it does skip up in 10. This is a little fun fact for you. But this just means that it will send out at velocity 127 every single time. You can choose whichever one suits what you're using this for. So with that information, we're going to go back into Logic, and then on the channel, we're going to drop down this menu with the channel info. MIDI input, we're going to change to the EAD10, and then the MIDI in channel, we're going to change to 10 as well. And that basically means that this channel won't hear anything else other than the EAD10, and this is really handy for if you have multiple MIDI inputs. Or in my case, like you have a start and stop using the IAC driver, which is also sending out MIDI. So now, when I hit the pad, it plays it. And in theory, if I hit it really quietly, still the same volume, which is great. So we can now change this to do whatever we want. We can automate this to change sounds throughout the song. We can just do an insane amount of things with MIDI and sampling. And you can then repeat that for however many triggers you want to do. Now let's change it so that trigger controls the Logic project. So I'm going to keep all of the MIDI settings as is, just because that's easiest for this demo, but you'll want to either change it so they're all different between the pads and the foot switch, or you can do what I do and just use it to control the project. And again, if you want to use the foot switch that I mentioned earlier in this video, follow these exact steps, but press the foot switch first first, so you're on the foot switch settings on the EAD10 rather than the trigger. So in Logic, we're going to go to Key Commands and Edit Assignments, and that's going to bring up this. What I want to do is search for play, and then play here, scroll down to Control Surfaces, Learn New Assignment, and we're going to hit the pad. Or in your case, that might be the foot switch. Note 48, and we know that note 48 is C2 from doing the sampling earlier in the video. And now that should mean, when I hit this, 1, 2, 3, it plays the backing track. And yes, that was a James Brown count-in, which is included in my Logic template project, which you can grab at the link down below. But now if we use the foot switch and assign the play and the stop, now we have control over the Logic project or the backing track project, whichever one you choose. It's amazing. So we've got samples, we can control the project. What if we now want to record the EAD10 at the same time within the Logic project so that at the end of the gig, at the end of the show, we can have the drums synced to the backing track. This is a really cool feature and is only actually a feature that you can do with the EAD10 because of how it is. So in Logic, let's create an audio track. I'm going to name this EAD10. In Logic Pro settings and audio in this menu here, the only thing you want to make sure is that the input device is the EAD10. And now we're going to make sure the inputs are stereo because we've got 2 stereo mics on the unit. Record arm it, make sure that the click and the pre-count in Logic is turned off. That's really important. And now the last thing we're going to do is go back to Logic, Key Commands, Edit Assignments, and whichever button we used for the play, whether that be the foot switch or the trigger, that's going to be our record button. So for me, it's the trigger. So I'm now going to go record in Key Commands. There we go, record up here, learn no assignment, same pad. Then this pop-up will happen. The control is already assigned to another parameter. I want to keep both, and this is important because if you just do it to record, the project won't play. It'll just record, but it'll sit there. So having record and play means we get this. 1, 2, 3. So now the EAD10 is recording the input, the backing track is playing, and it's amazing. If we want to take that a level further, what we can also do is record arm the samples, so it records all the samples at the same time. And the best bit, because we've got the auto stop in this project right at the end, that means that if we get to the end of the song, it's recording both the MIDI track and the audio track, and stop, go to next, record again. I don't have a click on this track, I'm sorry. You can just copy and paste it if you've got this template. But that now means that all of the recordings are going to be in the sections of the songs. You don't have just one really long track that's recording everything in between and you have to time it. None of that. You can record it as per each song, and I think that is incredible. Like I said, if you want any of the cables that I used or this Logic template, you can find it in the link just down below. Usually I pin the first comment with it. Let me know what you use the EAD10 for, if you use it for more than just recording and monitoring, because it is actually quite a powerful thing. I've got more videos coming out, so make sure you're subscribed. Thanks for watching.